what I am going to be talking about today is exam tips, because I have finished my GCSEs, which makes me sound really young. Obviously finished them at the end of June, and yesterday I got my results, which I was very happy with. But I know that a lot of you that will be watching this will have exams coming up. You're probably stressed already because you're like, last year you're like, no, I'm fine, and then this year you're like, oh frick, I actually have to do this. So I made a kind of list, which I'm reading here because I don't remember anything, which is not handy for exams. So I've made a list of things that I sort of wish that I'd remembered last time, or like when I did my exams, that I think would be kind of handy. It's like stuff that I've learnt and things. So yeah, start with that. So the first thing you need to do before you start any exam or anything is be confident and believe in yourself. And I know that that's something that you'll hear so many times, but you have to think to yourself, if you say, I cannot do maths, you are going to fail maths. Let's be realistic, I've said it so many times, but the problem was, every time I thought it, I realised, what am I saying? If I try, I am not going to fail maths. And I didn't, I got an A. Pretty impressed, but hey-ho. So yeah, the first thing is just say to yourself, I can pass this. And if you say that to yourself, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to do it. You might struggle, it's going to be an issue, but you'll be able to do it, I swear. Let's just move on from thinking about yourself, and some like tips and stuff for when I was revising. These were really handy. The first thing I have to say is do not distract yourself with TV shows, films, music, anything. I know you want to, and I know I got through 5 seasons of Pretty Little Liars while trying to study, and it did not help me, I assure you. What you need to do is you really need to sit down and you need to go, right, this is the thing that's distracting me. My studying is going to distract me, so let's do that, okay? Don't think, oh, if I just put it on in the background. If you want music, listen to some like calming stuff in the background, nothing with lyrics, because you will stand up and you will sing and you will dance. No beats, no anything, just some calm music. But if you start listening to fun playlists and start gallivanting off with every single show that you've ever needed to watch, you're not going to do well. I messed up so badly in my mocks, and then after that I went, look, I cannot be doing this. And so I did well that time, because I studied instead of thinking, what can I watch instead? So if I can give you any advice, it's do not distract yourself, because you'll think you've learned something but you really haven't. Speaking of studying, study in advance if you know you're not going to have the time. This Easter, which was just before my exams, I was away for the whole 2 weeks where I was off school, so I knew that I was not going to be able to revise. So through the Christmas holidays, I revised lots, like a fuck ton, let's be realistic. And I feel like that's really important, because if you know that you're not going to have a set time to study, do it in advance, because you need that time, you really do. And long-term memory will stay with you, but short-term will stay with you for such a small time that the only time to be able to do short memory is before the exam. Before you start studying for an exam, an important thing to do is to check specifications, because I found that by looking at specifications there were things that I didn't actually have to learn for the exam that were in the textbook. So it kind of helps to look at the specification to know exactly what you need to know. Otherwise you'll just be learning a vast range of things that will never like come up. So I think specifications were really an important thing for me to make sure that I wasn't just studying everything. I wasn't like overloading myself, and that I was just studying the things that I needed to do. And so I feel like that's an important thing if you're getting ready for things, exams, whatever. Another thing to do with that is exams that have options. So like this one, so it's like you can do this topic and this topic, but we'll only ask questions on this and this kind of thing. And basically you can either do what I did, which I don't know if it was the best idea, but it worked for me perfectly, was to look at the specification, look at past papers, and to go through, see what comes up frequently in like exams as such. Like in my history exam, I knew that the Treaty of Versailles was definitely going to come up, so I knew to definitely revise that. So you can either do what I did, which was then deduce what to actually revise. So I wasn't revising all 8 topics, I was revising 4, and that meant I could learn those really well, and it meant that I knew loads of information and I knew that they were going to come up. However, the fail-safe option is obviously to revise them all really well, but you fear overloading yourself. So I feel like it's important to either do one or do the other. I obviously touched on the other subjects, I knew what was going on, so if the question did come up, I could answer it. But certainly I found that finding a few that I knew were going to be there and studying them really well really helped me. I just spoke about past papers. I think that's an important thing as well. I know many teachers talk about it, but I think past papers are super important because when you turn up to the exam and you open that piece of paper, you take off the top and you're like, okay, the best thing is to know what to expect to see. If you have no idea what the paper actually looks like, you're going to spend a lot of time going through and finding out what it is that you need to do and find out what this means and how we're supposed to structure this. Whereas if you know from a past paper, it's really handy so that when you open up that piece of paper you know what to do and you can just get going, because many papers you spend so much time just reading because you don't know what's going to be there that it wastes lots of time that you need for the exam, honestly. Another really important study tip that was really great for me was making acronyms. So that's when, for example, if you've got a list of things like dog, cat, boy, you just put DCB, and by remembering DCB you can remember what the word is and therefore you can remember the list. I did this for so many history points. For example, there were like 14 points and you just jot down the first letters, maybe rearrange them, just to make a memorable set of words, a set of letters that will remind you and you can go, oh yeah, that means that, and then you know the list without having to remember long words and trying to remember all them together. Acronyms literally saved my life. And if you have to change some of the words and change some of the wording of things so you can get a more memorable acronym, that's completely fine, obviously, but as long as you know what you're expecting. Next to your acronyms, or obviously do it separately, is to jot down key information. There's no point writing long sentences because you will not remember them. If you jot down key information like this many of that, this many of that, this happened then, date, event, you are going to remember it, because long sentences, like reading a textbook, you'll very rarely remember every single word. But as long as you've got and you cycle through and you pick the like key information, you'll do really well, because obviously that jogs your memory as you're reading things to find the most important things, and then by writing them down again, it will really keep it in your mind for the exam. In terms of when to study, if you've got an exam the next day, only revise that subject the night before. Don't mix up subjects because you will mix information and it could just go really wrong. So if you've got chemistry on the Wednesday, Tuesday night is chemistry night, nothing else, because that will keep it in your short-term memory, that will remind you on the next day, and it will still be in your short-term memory. So I think that's really important. Please don't mix up subjects unless you have 2. If you have 2 on the next day, revise the second exam first. So you've got it in your, sort of in the medium-term memory. I know there's loads of memory, but hey, because then at least you'll have the idea. And then later in the night, just before you go to bed and things, revise your first exam, because then it will stay in your short-term memory for that. And then after your first exam, revise for the second exam, because then again you've got the short-term memory thing going on. And I think that's the best way to revise for things like this, because then it makes sure that you always have it in your short-term memory, because you'll already have it in your long-term memory, hopefully. But to have it in your short-term memory is the best thing you can do for yourself. Also, don't set deadlines. Loads of people will tell you to set deadlines and think, I need to do this by then. But I know that you will not stick to those deadlines. I'm absolutely the same, but you won't stick to them, and then it'll become an absolute nightmare because you'll start thinking, oh, I've missed that deadline, and oh, I've missed this deadline, and then it'll all clog up. If you just know, I'm going to revise then, and I'm going to do this, that will be fine. As long as you revise enough for yourself, you will be fine. Deadlines do not work because they absolutely just stress you out. I remember saying, right, by 11 o'clock I will have done this, and I'll be halfway through and I'll go, I'm so behind schedule. And it makes you so much more stressed, so please don't set deadlines. I know that's like such an anti-advice kind of thing, but don't, please. Also, a very handy study tip is to ask your friends, and I know that nobody likes to admit that they don't understand something, but if you have a friend that does understand, what are you going to lose by asking? Because I found that it was fantastic to be able to ask my friend and go, can you explain this to me? And she can explain it in terms that make more sense to me. Like reading from a textbook can sometimes have really technical language that you should know, but sometimes can just not make sense. And if your friend knows, it's fantastic to be able to have that and to be able to talk about it and discuss, because then you can ask questions and you can go, ooh, how does this do this? How does that do that? Also, share notes. If they have really good notes on something, look at them and read them and try and absorb the information, maybe write it down yourself separately. Anything that will try to help you, because sharing other people's notes can really help if they do it obviously in the same way that you can understand. If somebody does it completely different, don't. Ask them to test you. Give them a piece of paper that has all your notes on, not all of them, but like on a certain topic, and ask them to just ask some simple questions going through it. And if you can remember just offhand, just off by heart, then that means that you know the information, and that is so useful. Because if you know the information, you should not be worrying, because you should be able to apply it in the test conditions. Now we come to the day of the exam, and some advice that doesn't seem correct but is really helped me. Don't be afraid to panic. I know that you are terrified. I know people say, don't panic, you'll be fine, no need to worry. But if you are panicking, don't worry about it. Honestly, we all panic. We all think, oh, I don't know this. But you'd be surprised what your mind can do when you're running on adrenaline. So don't be afraid to panic. You are not going to fail. Okay? The only time that you should panic is if you've forgotten materials, because that is the most important thing for your exam. Make sure you have at least 3 pens. I know that seems overkill, but if either of them run out, you need a safe option, and that'll be your 3rd pen. Make sure that you already have looked on past papers and you've seen the materials you need for like maths, you need a calculator, protractors, everything like that. Make sure you have them, and make sure you have your clear pencil case, because any of these things go wrong, it will be a nightmare and you will just stress in the exam and waste so much more time than if you're prepared and you have all the material you need. And some advice that absolutely every teacher will give you, so you don't need this from me, but I'm going to say it anyway. Read the questions. I know that that's what you think it says. I know that the question reads that way, but read it again. Read it 3 times. You need to know that when you write down your information, you're going to be correct. Check your work. I know maths questions, you don't want to go over them again, but if you see that you've added 3 plus 6 and you've written down 10 instead of 9, you are going to be screwed and you're going to miss a mark and carry it on, and it's just so pointless when you can spend just an extra few seconds just checking it all over again. Because I know that things seem so simple, and when you've written them down you go, fantastic, but if you check at the end when you've only got 5 minutes left and you find so many mistakes, you're not going to have a good time, I can assure you. Anyway, that concludes my first video, I guess. I really hope some of these tips help you for the next years, future. All of them have really helped me, and it's things that now that I've done my proper set exams, I've realised afterwards, and I'll be carrying on for the rest. So I really hope this helps you, and hope to see you again soon. I don't know what the jazz hands are for, but thank you if you watch this. Usually on this channel I'll probably be posting short films that I make because I'm really interested in film. Maybe stuff like this. Don't expect any beauty tips because I've already started crying and I've got makeup everywhere, so don't expect any of that. And nothing from hair because my hair is a mess as well, and it's over bleached and it wants to cry. So yeah, don't expect any of that.